Welcome back, this is Tucker. Let's talk weather. I've been watching a really big pattern change as we get into the end of May, and it'll have certain implications on your weather. If anything's for sure though, storm season is not over. I'm tracking where those storms are going to be and where severe weather is most likely over the next week. Good to see you all again. Hopefully you're back if you were watching our severe weather live coverage. George is back for another forecast update. Just a quick review of what's going on right now. We got this huge nor'easter that just hit the Northeast. I work in Boston on TV actually, and we got pummeled. Some areas over 5 inches of rain. But you can see that spinning system off the coastline, kind of like a hurricane almost. We typically get these in the winter, so unusual for us this season. Also thought you guys might find this interesting. We've had over 1,100 severe storm warnings over the last week across the United States. This has been this past wave of severe weather, and boy, has it been active. Not only that, we've had over 250 tornado warnings in the last 7 days. This has been our past wave of weather, but a new wave is coming in, and we got some big changes to get to. By the way, I'm a meteorologist. I make my own forecasts. I think a lot of people here on YouTube kind of regurgitate information they've heard elsewhere. Not going to do that. You're getting a real forecast here, so let's dive into it. So much of our weather is what happens above our heads at the jet stream. So I'm going to explain what we're looking at right here. And this is the jet stream, that wave of brighter colors. When you get these dips like we're seeing in the east, you get instability and oftentimes you get storms. Also, when you have those brighter colors, that tells you have wind energy. So that's part of the reason the Northeast is getting hit here. What we're watching as we move into this week is some bigger change. But what I will say is that we still have this dip in the jet stream coming in this weekend, Saturday and Sunday, and even into the start of next week. You can see it's more subtle, but nonetheless, we still have the jet stream kind of taking that dip out west, and this instability is going to ride into the Central U.S. here and certainly produce some strong storms Saturday, Sunday. And I personally believe even Monday and Tuesday we have the threat for some severe weather. Again, more subtle here. We actually have a center of low pressure, and it's forcing the jet stream to get a little bit wavy here. And again, more subtle, but when you get that waviness, you can still get severe weather. So Monday and Tuesday, I'm also watching, especially in the southern tier of the United States. After that, we have some much bigger changes in the jet stream ahead too. We're going to get to those a little bit later in the video, but let's talk about the severe weather threat here first. This is our severe weather outlook for Friday. We're just going to go over it briefly because I'm recording here on Friday, but it's a level 2 risk across a good chunk of the Central U.S. You got some storms that are going to form on the dry line. That's mainly wind, hail, low chance for tornadoes. We could have larger hail, stronger wind out here in Oklahoma, Texas, even into Arkansas, Missouri, but level 2, not a huge outbreak, just some scattered severe storms. As we move into your Saturday, remember we were talking about how the jet stream is a bit more subtle. Well, that's why you have more of a widespread level 1 severe weather threat. Kind of makes sense. Level 2 risk out here in Oklahoma, Texas, parts of Kansas, Missouri, and Arkansas. I don't expect they're going to extend this very much because of that more subtle look on the jet stream. And we could have these storms, after they form in some clusters out here, begin to move into the southeastern U.S. And I'll show you the timeline and all that here in just a moment. On Sunday, we have a little bit more of a substantial look here. Again, nothing significant, but a level 2 risk across Oklahoma, Texas, Arkansas, and once again, a level 1 threat that extends from the Rocky Mountains to the Atlantic. I do believe, though, this is the day we may see a small level 3 risk zone emerge. The details aren't clear yet, but it has the highest potential of the days I'm looking at least for the next few. You guys also know I like looking at some of the machine learning guidance, some of the more cutting edge stuff. There's our Sunday risk out there. You can see it's a little higher. Here's Monday, and I was mentioning this before, but I do believe portions of the southern U.S. will still see a severe threat on Monday, and even Tuesday, I wouldn't be surprised if we see some higher numbers show up there in terms of probability. So Monday and Tuesday I'm watching. Also, there is a big hint at what I'm going to talk about later in the video on this graphic too. I'll see if you can pick it out, but we'll get into this timing coming up here right now. By the way, if you guys have any questions, just drop them in the comments. I'll be sure to respond to all of you. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't already, and let me know where you're watching from. Always love to see who's on here. To Futurecast now. You can see storms popping up across the Central U.S. here. This is Friday, of course. That's why we have that severe weather threat. A couple of these could be severe, as mentioned. You're going to see them begin to move into the southeast overnight, where there may be some lingering storms in the morning on Saturday. We reset on Saturday, though. You see storms here beginning to pop up in the afternoon. Once again, same places, same times, afternoon, evening. And they're actually going to slide into the southeastern U.S. overnight as well. So that's why we have that severe weather risk extends to the Atlantic. If you're in the southeast, expect these more so Sunday morning. And then Sunday, again, that's the day I expect higher potential of all days we were talking about here. That's our biggest severe weather threat down here. Could also be some storms that pop up off the mountains a little farther to the north and west. But it's the stuff you're seeing in the south central U.S., and this is, again, going to continue overnight with storms lingering perhaps into Monday morning. But Monday, we're going to see more storms begin to pop up, especially in these southern areas. This is where I believe that severe weather threat is going to be as we continue through the afternoon on Monday. So something to watch right there, and you can see our weather models here, as I agree with them, showing some more robust convection. Then on Tuesday, once more, not as significant, but still some storms ongoing. Still, I believe, some residual storm threats out here in the southeast. Some rain that's going to be sliding, perhaps even into the mid-Atlantic, into the middle of next week. But it's also here that we see those bigger changes I've been alluding to. So let's get into what you should be planning for as we head towards the end of the month, because these changes are much bigger. So here's what I did not show you before. We're going back to the jet stream, and as we get into Wednesday the 28th, and I'm going to move this to the 29th, the 30th, really the end of the month, you're not seeing much because there's not much to see. The jet stream is bowing so far north, it's really just over Canada, and over here across the entire United States, we don't have much wind energy. So this is the 29th. I'm going to move this forward further. 30th, moving into the 1st. Even when you get some wind energy, notice this. It's out of the northwest, and that is not very conductive for storms. We don't have those dips in the jet stream. So I believe as we get into the end of May and even the start of June, we will finally have a bit of a reprieve from storm threats and some bigger changes in the weather that we've had recently. This is great news for all of you guys. Not good news for me. I'm going storm chasing next week, but be sure to check back. We'll still see good stuff. Don't worry. Now, a lot of times when the jet stream gets quiet, people start throwing around heat dome as a term, and a lot of times that is why the jet stream gets quiet, but not the case here. You're going to see very warm temperatures across really just the Pacific time zone here, but when you get a heat dome, you really get it to take over a good, half of the United States. However, you may have noticed in our jet stream, there's still some contamination, we'll call it. You have that northwesterly flow. It's going to eat into any kind of warmth that tries to build. And as we get through the end of the month here, like I said, while it will be very warm in the western U.S., it may not be that warm here in the central U.S. and even the east, maybe average at best. Not to mention, it's also more likely to be a little bit gray. Even some rainstorms are possible, or rainy days across the central and eastern U.S. here with this pattern evolving. And that's basically what you're seeing right here. A lot of mixed up atmosphere and no real strong regime. Though I'll mention too, you're seeing it right in this picture here. Our next big wave of severe weather, and I know we're a ways out, but I'm looking at our next big wave of severe weather here to perhaps come as we get into June 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th. A little ways out, but the 2nd may be a little early too, but it is going to be very quiet to end May, to begin June. But once we get into that first week, a few days in at least, things could become more active. So we're going to wrap it there, guys. We'll keep it brief. Be sure to drop something in the comments. Be sure to check back as I start this storm chase. There's going to be some fun content, especially in shorts, even if we don't see a ton of huge storms, although I do have a knack for getting stuff on these quiet days. But if you're going to be impacted by severe weather this week, I wish you safety, and I'll have an update for all you guys here before the end of the weekend. So check back, and I'll see you next time.